Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Kayode Okekiolu.
Tonight, don't undermine the legislature. Senate Committee on Appropriation warns the Group CEO of NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, gives him 24 hours to appear before it as a House committee fumes over absence of INEC chairman at Budget Defense session. Number of those injured in Sunday's mistaken airstrike in Kaduna State rises to 87 as chairman of Senate Committee on Army calls for calm, says incident does not warrant resignation of a Chief of Army Staff as being demanded. And the National Judicial Council recommends the appointment of 11 justices to the Supreme Court, and that's subject to the President's approval and subsequent confirmation of their appointment by the Senate.
On business news tonight, Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited seals liquefied natural gas agreement with Chinese firm for domestic and international markets at the ongoing climate summit in Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
On sports news tonight, former champion Caroline Wozniacka receives a wild card for next month's Australian Open.
From Abuja, panel set up to investigate the death of greatness Olorunfemi, who was stabbed and thrown out of a moving vehicle in the FCT, makes public its report. Says the victim was brought to the hospital dead.
And in international news from London, Boris Johnson fought back tears as he told the COVID inquiry he should have twigged the seriousness of coronavirus sooner than he did.
The clock is ticking for the Group CEO of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, who has been given 24 hours to appear before the Senate Committee on Appropriation. The chairman of the committee, Senator Adeola Olamilekan, who asked him to come along with the executive secretary of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, warned that failure to appear undermines the legislature and sabotages its work. They are required to present the list of all individual companies operating with oil mining licenses in Nigeria, as well as the total production output approved daily. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Mezoke, reports.
In continuation of its budget defense sessions, the Senate Committee on Appropriation meets officials from the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, as well as the Federal Inland Revenue Service, among other agencies.
Consolidated Revenue Fund of
the legislators took up the Ministry of Finance on the process for the issuance of tax waivers as incentives, demanding a halt of the existing procedure for such grants.
We have to take bold decisions. When you talk about credit, tax credit, it's an expenditure, and it should go through the National Assembly. There's no two way about that. This tax credit, so look at these illegalities, remove them tomorrow, please. Then let's move ahead. Few people are taking advantage of it. This tax credit that they collect for roads, up to now they didn't do the roads.
We have also agreed on the issue of waivers. That one, all monies be paid to the coffers of the government, and people can now apply for rebates. And as you said, yes, we're in a transition period. That the provision that was made this year in this year's budget, for us, since it's a transition period, can we half it by reducing it by 50%.
Yet, this thing is unexplainable.
The Senate continued to probe the budget of other agencies, including the FIRS, before raising an observation.
GMD of NNPC has refused to attend any invitation of the National Assembly. Failure to appear or to attend to public hearing is undermining the legislature. And we are hereby directing that within 24 hours, the Group Managing Director of NNPC Nigeria Limited should appear before the Senate Committee on Appropriation and it should be in company of the MD or ES NUPRC. They should attend. And while coming, they should give us the total production output which has been approved for them on a daily basis.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, had failed to show up for the second time for the hearing of the Senate Ad Hoc Committee probing over 11 trillion naira expenditure on turnaround maintenance of refineries in the country between 2010 and 2023.
It is high time we
Interfacing with the Ministry of Solid Minerals, whose major concern is funding for the acquisition of bankable data to attract investors, the legislators concluded by promising to raise the ministry's budget to enable it to reach its revenue target.
We cannot attract the investment profile that we need.
Other agencies are expected to appear before the end of the week to defend their budget. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, it's a similar scenario at the lower house, where the House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters has expressed displeasure over the failure of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to honor the invitation of the committee for its budget defense. Chairman of the committee, Mr. Adebayo Balogun, says no communication was received from the commission, explaining the absence of the chairman. The committee has now rescheduled the engagement to a date yet to be communicated. Our National Assembly correspondent, Terry Kumi, has details of this and other committee engagements in the House.
As the budget defense gets underway, that which was feared has already begun to happen. As in the past, the absence of heads of ministries, departments and agencies is observed. Members of the House Committee on Electoral Matters, after waiting for over an hour for the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, appear to have had enough.
It's rather unfortunate that the management of INEC is not yet here, and this is not a good way to start a new administration, not with the marching order given that by Mr. President that he wants the budget speedily treated, and they've not been able to communicate, and that makes it even worse.
May I please make my indulgence that from the chair, we use this medium to give INEC a definite date on when they should appear. And a warning.
We don't want to give another date in public now, and now find out that that day won't be visible. So let's go deliberate and look for another visible date.
In the meantime, while some committees have commenced the budget defense, others hold inaugural meetings.
We will closely scrutinize the Nigeria Customs revenue collection and remittance processes to ensure that all custom duties and levies are promptly accounted for and remitted into the Federation account. We must strive to balance the need for revenue collection with the facilitation of legitimate trade, while also ensuring that our borders remain impenetrable to illicit goods and activities.
In addition to providing substantial support to the blue economy, a sector that significantly contributes to our national revenue. Hence, it is imperative that we exercise our legislative oversight over the Navy's general activities and operations.
The House had created over 20 new committees, which the Speaker believes would enhance the oversight function of the House. This number is expected to further boost the speed and thoroughness of the process leading to the passage of the budget. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Away from the National Assembly, we continue to follow developments following Sunday's Army airstrike at Tudunbiri village in Kaduna State, as the number of injured persons has now increased from the initial 66 to 87. That's according to the Deputy Chief Medical Director of Baraudiko Teaching Hospital, Dr. Shaibu Musa. He told Channels Television that 11 victims, mostly children between the ages of 9 months to 5 years, were brought into the hospital today, some of whom are children whose parents were killed in the airstrike and are being examined to ascertain their state of health.
The Baraudiko Teaching Hospital in Kaduna has been inundated with patients since the army drone mistakenly struck the Tudunbiri community in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State on Sunday, December the 3rd. On Wednesday, more patients are brought into the hospital, and in a bid to ensure that the patients get the desired attention, the Deputy Medical Director of the facility, Dr. Shuaibu Musa, moves from ward to ward to check them out, and later sheds light on some of the latest arrivals.
There have been developments, right? The development that happened was that more victims are being brought in, and then, of course, more assistance, more help from the state government, from the defense ministry, are also coming. The developments that came in terms of victims, we have had an additional, I told you 66 as of day before yesterday, right? They have now increased to 81 patients, or even 87, because 6 have just been brought in, right? Just as I was talking to you, 6 people have been brought in. So we have this additional victims. So they have been assessed and then been also taken care of.
With the number of patients coming in, the Deputy Medical Director says the hospital is doing its best to fast-track their treatment.
In terms of assistance, yes, the Minister of State of Defense was here with his team. So also was the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, as well as GOC in Kaduna. They were all here, and all of them came with assistance. For instance, there was assistance from the Ministry of Defense, right? And also at the same time, the state government itself is assisting, especially to do with their feeding, with their clothing, with their cleaning agents, detergents, and so on and so forth. The state government also provided extra beds. The additional 6 patients that were just brought in are actually orphans whose parents were killed in the blast. And then the children were taken off their backs, and they are alive. So we are assessing them at the moment. They range from 9 months to about 6 months.
In the meantime, Dr. Musa assures the patients that the hospital will work day and night to ensure that all of them get over the trauma of the drone attack as quickly as possible.
Meanwhile, the chairman of a Senate Committee on the Army, Senator Abdulaziz Yeradua, has described the airstrike as a heinous mistake, which he says does not warrant the resignation of the Chief of Army Staff. Senator Yeradua, who commended the Army Chief for his admittance to the mistake, asked that peace be given a chance. The federal lawmaker was reacting to calls by the Northern Elders Forum for the resignation of the military top brass over the incident.
I think those calling for his resignation should understand this is not, they shouldn't even talk about it. It's not about resignation. This is a man who has so much integrity and a practical officer whom has been commended even before becoming the Chief of Army Staff. So the talk about him resigning should not even arise. I think the Chief of Army Staff needs to be commended for what he did, for accepting responsibility. You know, mistakes in war happens like this. This is not the first time. You know, even outside there, you see America, United States, Europe, when they go to war, such mistakes happen, such collateral damage happen. So you wouldn't know, especially when you see a group of people. These people move under the cover of darkness in groups. So if you see such a large group, based on the intelligence they got, you know, they thought they were the ones. So I want to advise the government of Kaduna State and other state governments where such religious events take place, you know, to direct such adherents and members of the Muslim community to inform the police of such gatherings, so that once the police are aware, such information will get to the army and other security agencies.
In part 2, after the break, we'll bring you more on the aftermath of that bombing in Kaduna State. Plus, deliberations at the ongoing climate summit focuses on the plight of slum dwellers and what actions can be taken to ensure a sustainable future. Well, that's in a moment. Stay with us.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Oh, no.
Unlimited. Anchor HMO is the professional health partner you need to live a healthier and more fulfilling life. Embrace a life of vitality with affordable health plans tailored to meet your health goals. Our network of over 3,000 accredited hospitals ensure you and your loved ones are always in the best of care. Whether it's general health, maternity, pediatric, and geriatric care, we have you covered. Call us today on 0800 Anchor HMO.
Choose Anchor HMO International.
What are you doing?
Hey, almost done with the dishes.
Yeah.
Pow. No, babe, it's clean. It's clean.
This too?
Babe, it's clean.
Right here. Thank you.
This one is clean.
Now they're clean.
Have you seen the remote?
No, I haven't seen it.
How did you do that?
Now, all of us like to chop better food. Food where they make body tranga and vegetables where fresh like see tomorrow not day. We want make the chocolate sweet the way we go like them. No cubes. Now be the secret. They make them with correct ingredients like chicken, parsley, garlic, plenty iron corn full and palm to make your chocolate palm bar for you. Come the sweet well. Now be the cocoa. Make we carry salute, throw away give no. Change your world by changing waiting day your plate.
Let us take you on a journey towards the fearless pursuit of knowledge. Navigating uncharted territories and taking bold, fearless steps towards a future shaped by courage and discovery as young, ambitious minds begin their quest for learning at a university. Pulling together people of diverse backgrounds to build a fearless generation that will change the future of our country and our continent. Wigwe University awaits, a testament to the power of education and unwavering spirit of those who dare to be fearless. Wigwe University, where the fearless make history. Now open for admission into the 2024-2025 session.
It's time for First Bank's Win Big promo. 170 million naira up for grabs. Open or reactivate your First Bank account. Deposit and maintain a minimum of 5,000 naira for just 30 days. And the soft life begins. Transact up to 5 times on our digital channels. And guess what? You could be a lucky 100,000 naira winner each month. But wait, there's more. Deposit and maintain 50,000 naira each month for 4 months. Or deposit 200,000 naira for 4 months. And you could stand a chance to win a whooping 1 million naira in the grand finale.
Don't miss your chance to win big with First Bank. This promo runs till February 23rd, 2024 and is open to new and existing account holders. Terms and conditions apply. Keep transacting. Keep winning. You first. First Bank.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television Lagos. Well, here's a reminder of our top stories. Don't undermine the legislature. Senate Committee on Appropriation warns the Group CEO of NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, gives him 24 hours to appear before it as House Committee fumes over absence of INEC chairman at Budget Defense session. The number of those injured in Sunday's mistaken airstrike in Kaduna State rises to 87. Chairman of Senate Committee on Army calls for calm, says incident does not warrant resignation of the Chief of Army Staff as being demanded. The National Judicial Council recommends the appointment of 11 justices to the Supreme Court, subject to the President's approval and subsequent confirmation of the appointment by the Senate. And UN says no safe place for fleeing Gazans as Israeli forces intensify their ground operation in areas harboring hundreds of thousands of civilians. Well, let's now bring you more reactions to the Kaduna airstrike that killed at least 85 people. This time, the United Nations Human Rights Office is calling on the military to review its rules of engagement, noting that this is the latest of at least 4 airstrikes that have resulted in significant civilian fatalities since 2017. The UN body, in a statement, calls on the authorities to take all feasible steps in the future to ensure civilians and civilian infrastructure are protected in the military's fight against terrorists and bandits. According to the UN, it is particularly alarming that the strike was based on the pattern of activities of those at the scene, which was wrongly analyzed and misinterpreted. It further called for a thorough and impartial investigation of all alleged violations of international human rights and international humanitarian law. Well, also reacting, the Jamaatul Nasir Islam, JNI, and Arawa Consultative Forum, in separate statements, expressed sadness over the airstrike. JNI's Secretary General, Professor Khalid Aliyu, expressed disbelief that the military carried out such airstrike without due diligence in line with standard operating procedures. While on its part, the ACF is calling for a thorough investigation into the bombing incident, as well as compensation for the victims. It wondered why the Nigerian Army authorities have remained mute about casualty figures. Meanwhile, a group of protesters stormed the gate of the National Assembly in Abuja, protesting the state of insecurity in parts of northern Nigeria. The group, mostly young people, carried placards displaying their displeasure over the security situation in Niger, Zamfara, and other parts of northern Nigeria. They are asking President Bola Tinubu to urgently address the situation to enable them return to their livelihoods. Speaking of the President Bola Tinubu has emphasized the imperative of cooperation for economic prosperity in West Africa, noting that a lack of synergy between Nigeria and Benin Republic has been a hindrance to mutual development. According to his special advisor on media, Mr. Jiringilale made the observation when he received President Patrice Talon of Benin Republic at the State House in Abuja. He adds that Nigeria and Benin Republic share a lot in common, which he describes as conjoined twins held together at the hip. And now to our continued coverage of the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai. Well, today, attention turned to the plight of city dwellers and what actions can be taken to ensure a sustainable future. Well, estimates suggest that urban activities in cities are responsible for 75% of global CO2 emissions, with the most affected populations being the slum dwellers in developing countries. Our environment correspondent, Ayala Kasim, has an overview of today's high-level second ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change.
The urban poor is indeed increasingly vulnerable. More than 1 billion people live in slums and informal settlements and are highly vulnerable to climate change. Despite these risks, many cities have not yet addressed climate change.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
So on the multi-level action, urbanization and built environment day, The Deputy Secretary General, through video message, urges the delegates to articulate the urban transition plan that drives local climate action and sustainable development with greater ambition and more robust funding at speed and at scale.
Climate and development finance must therefore prioritize communities that need our support the most, including the urban poor and displaced populations migrating towards cities in the hope of a better life, often fleeing the climate destruction of their rural environments and livelihoods.
Member states of the Coalition for High Ambition Multi-Level Partnerships, known as CHAMP, on the second ministerial meeting expressed their willingness to strategically put measures in place to create the much-needed balance to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
We are advocating for more defined roles for the traditional institutions, NGOs, and peace-based organizations that will give renewed hope to the local communities as well as integrate the genuine concern and aspirations in the climate change discourse.
While Nigeria in the plenary canvasses for more support for African countries in their efforts to build sustainable cities. In the pavilion, it is quoting investors as Nigeria Day is celebrated at the COP.
We have also been able to listen to presentations from interagencies, some other ministries, so that we can know what B is doing, you know. We have also been able to showcase the Nigerian color, as it were, and the Nigerian spirit.
In the negotiating room, many disagreements remain, particularly over issues like mitigation ambition, finance, fossil fuel phase-out, which is a contention topic with many disagreements. The latest text does not present a favorable pathway forward.
The options on historical responsibility are pitted against the GST being forward-looking in its outlook, which definitely risks creating some diversions among developed and developing countries. The tripling of renewable energy and doubling of energy efficiency target is given as an option versus no text, and this is not something that we can support. What we definitely would like to see is language on tripling of renewable energy and doubling energy efficiency, along with just phase out of all fossil fuels. All of this language needs to appear in the final text for an ambitious GST outcome.
At this point, the facilitators will consult to decide whether there will be changes in the texts, after which the process will be handed over to the COP presidency. Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
The 10, Mokwe Ogunyusuf is here from our Abuja studio. Hello, Mokwe.
Hello, Coyote. Well, we'll start with some results now. The panel of inquiry set up by the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, on October the 5th this year to investigate the death of Greatness Olorunfemi, a victim of a crime popularly called One Chance, has made public its report. Led by Professor Mohammed Mohammed, President of the Medical and Dental Consultants of Nigeria, the panel refuted social media claims alleging that Greatness was abandoned by hospital staff at the Maitama General Hospital. They reported that the investigations revealed that the victim, who was stabbed and thrown out of a moving car on the Kubwa-Maitama Expressway, was brought into the hospital dead.
The video of Miss Greatness on social media showing her in sitting position on a pavement at the scene of the incident did not show she had any sign of life when we review the video that was circulating. The allegation made online in viral video and in other press and news reports to the effect that Miss Greatness was brought to the hospital alive and allowed to bleed to death could not be verified or corroborated by any other credible evidence. The coordinator, YALI, that is Young African Leadership Initiative Abuja, who testified, confirmed that the association's impression and statement to the effect of Miss Greatness was brought to Maitama District Hospital alive and left unattended until she died, were on the basis of what they were told by a Good Samaritan driver and the investigate IPO, who spoke to them on the basis of what the driver reported to the police. The coordinator of Oyali confirmed that they did not visit the hospital to verify the veracity of what they were told.
Meanwhile, advocates for the eradication of gender-based violence are calling on the federal government and private sector players to create and support institutions that will address the root causes of gender-based violence. They made the call during an event to mark the 16 days of activism on gender-based violence in Abuja in partnership with Sterling One Foundation. Our correspondent Benny Ark reports.
The 16 Days of Activism on Gender-Based Violence is an annual campaign by the United Nations to bring awareness to the violence perpetrated against women and girls. A movie on the challenges of gender-based violence is screened to set the tone for the conversation of the day.
To build strong, effective institutions that can prevent gender-based violence, can sanction the perpetrators of gender-based violence and assist their victims.
According to United Nations Population Fund, about 30 million women and girls experiencing gender-based violence, harmful practices against women and girls in Nigeria. The figure data show that 1 in 3 women, that is 25% of Nigerian population, suffer from various forms of gender-based violence. The conversation here centers on how it can be prevented.
People think of gender-based violence as rape and domestic abuse, but it's also harassment, discrimination. There's so many things within that spectrum. The catcalls, that is a violation. So I want all of us, starting today, to think about what we're going to do in our homes, in our religious places, in our offices.
We go on into this movie. My call to everyone is, as you go into your different spaces and spheres of influence, let everywhere be a chat room where these issues are being discussed.
The UN resident and humanitarian coordinator, Mr. Matthias Schmale, calls for the mobilization of resources to end the menace.
Mobilizing the private sector is an important component, and a part of it, of course, is the resources they need to put into this. Government has to put in resources, and we talk a lot with government leaders about gender-responsive budgeting, including putting into federal and state budgets amounts of money into budgets to fight gender-based violence.
The consensus here is that the appropriate legal actions should be taken against perpetrators of gender-based violence to serve as a deterrent to others. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
Still to come on the news at 10, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited sells liquefied natural gas agreements for domestic and international markets at the ongoing Climate Change Summit in Dubai. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back. We're looking at legal matters now. The National Judicial Council, the NJC, has recommended the appointment of 11 justices to the Supreme Court. A statement by its Director of Information, Soji Oye, explains that the recommendation was made at the 104th meeting of the Council today in Abuja. The recommended candidates will be sworn in after the approval of their recommendation by the President and the subsequent confirmation of the appointment by the Senate. With this appointment, the Apex Court will have the full complement of 21 justices as envisaged by the Constitution. The NJC, at its last meeting for the year, also recommended the appointment of Justice Mohammed Ahmed Rahmat to the Court of Appeal, as well as 6 heads of court and 26 other judicial officers. Now, the Federal High Court sitting in Ikoyi and the Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja today struck out the bribery and money laundering cases filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, against the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Lagos State, Mr. Shukbo Shashore. This brings to an end the prosecution of the senior advocate, which lasted for about 15 months. He was first arraigned on October the 20th, 2022, before Justice Chukwujeku Aneke of the Federal High Court, Ikoyi, on a 4-count charge of money laundering to the tune of $200,000. A day later, on October the 21st, he was also arraigned before Justice Mojisola Dada of the Lagos State High Court, Ikeja, on a 2-count charge bordering on corrupt offers to public officers, contrary to the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. Mr. Shashore had pleaded not guilty to the crimes, but the EFCC counsel, Bala Sanga, today withdrew the charge bordering on corrupt offers to public officers against the senior advocate of Nigeria. A similar scenario played out at the Federal High Court, Ikoyi, Lagos, where the EFCC counsel also withdrew the money laundering charge against the former Lagos Attorney General. With the matter struck out, Mr. Shashore's lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, Chijoke Okoli, applied for the release of his client's international passport. Justice Chukwujeku Aneke granted the application. And that's all from our Abuja studios. It's back now to you, Coyote.
Well, thanks a lot, Mark. To budget matters now, the governors of Edo, Enugu, Oyo and Gombe states have presented the 2024 budget proposals to their various state assemblies. Both the governors made their budget presentations to the lawmakers, with education sector taking the highest chunk in the fiscal spending, particularly in Enugu and Oyo states.
Season of budget presentation for state governments in the country, and several governors have made known their fiscal spending plans for 2024. In Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde presented the state's 2024 budget of 434.4 billion naira to the State Assembly for approval.
We believe that the growth of our economy is dependent on the fiscal decisions we take regarding our capital expenditure. Therefore, we're focusing on projects that will yield positive results for our economy in our areas of comparative advantage. Since assuming office in 2019, we have worked towards reducing our infrastructural deficit in 4 focus sectors: agriculture, education, health, and security. This has been largely responsible for the growth in our economy, such that for the fiscal year 2022, Oyo State was 6th in the highest internally generated revenue IGR in Nigeria, and number 1 in IGR from local government councils.
While the highest share of 90.6 billion naira went to education. Next is Enugu State. Governor Peter Mbah presented a budget of 521.5 billion naira for the 2024 fiscal year before the State House Assembly, which is the highest in the state's history, comprising 414.3 billion naira capital expenditure and 107.2 billion naira recurrent expenditure.
In the area of our revenues, we estimated that total recurrent revenue during 2024 will amount to 383,789 million naira.
He said although the economic sector got the highest in the capital expenditure distribution, the education sector got 73.6% of the social sector allocation and 33% of the total budget, presenting the highest in both instances. In Edo State, the governor, Godwin Obaseki, presented a budget proposal of 325.3 billion naira for the year 2024.
The revenue estimates is based on a $65 per barrel benchmark for crude oil, with an average daily production of 1.6 million barrels per day, which we pray will happen, as well as an increase in our own internally generated revenue estimates, which we expect will be in the neighborhood of 72 billion naira next year.
And finally, in Gombe State, northeast of the country, Governor Muhammadu Yahaya presented a proposed budget of 207 billion naira. The budget is made up of 87.25 billion naira for recurrent expenditure, representing 42%, and 120.5 billion naira for capital expenditure.
And now at the federal level, the Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, Mr. Ben Akabweze, has been speaking on how the budget estimate for the year 2024 is expected to positively affect all sectors of the economy. The Budget Office Director General explains that despite the wide criticisms, the 27.5 trillion naira estimate will address key areas in healthcare, security, education, and the economy. He was a guest on our political program, Politics Today.
Our revenue performance as of September is already running ahead of the budget, just 8.65 trillion, as against a pro rata budget of 8.28 trillion. So for this year, 2023, we will make the budget projection. But the way to look at it, okay, remember the budget, the revenue projection was for a full year, January to December. And it was on the assumption that by June, the petrol subsidy will be stopped. When you look at the run rate now of the budget performance, in the revenue performance in the last 2 months, in the months of August and September, you will see a run rate of over 1.5 trillion naira. If we sustain this rate, the current run rate of over 1.5 trillion naira, next year's budgeted revenue is 8.3 trillion naira. So at least the current run rate, if we keep this run rate into 2024, we will make the 18.3 trillion naira. So I don't know, what kind of analysis people are doing, but I expect that there be more rigor in the analysis.
Not all the stories. Women Aligned for Growth, WAG, a non-governmental organization, is inspiring women and youths to collectively join in rebuilding the country. At the formal launch of WAG and the WAG Widow Agro-Empowerment Program in Lagos, these categories of the population were asked to take up more active roles in running national affairs.
It's a dance of celebration by WAG Queens to kickstart the Women Aligned for Growth launch and WAG Widows Agro-Empowerment Program. In a significant stride towards positive change and in the spirit of unity, the launch of WAG, which is an impact female NGO, serves as a beacon of empowerment and a catalyst for character rebuilding in Nigeria.
We feel that the decadence in the Nigerian society is unparalleled. Our values are mostly eroded, and we think that women hold the ace to work with the men and the youths to rebuild the Nigerian nation.
The guest speaker, Khadija Okunu-Lamidi, a presidential aspirant in the 2023 election, speaks on the role of women in nation building.
As women, we must raise the capacity of the country to raise the standards of living of her residents and create growth, progress, and positive change. We must make it the highest priority of government by highlighting all the constraints to enhanced, inclusive, and sustainable social and economic equity.
Pastor Itwai Godalo, who is a WAG patron, urges the women in the room to claim their natural advantages.
My ask tonight is every single one of us, what's your excuse for not fulfilling the purpose of God for your life? Especially ladies who somehow feel that they are naturally disadvantaged and want to sometimes even celebrate that disadvantage instead of stepping out and claiming the natural advantages that God had given them.
I commit to collaborating with other women.
The WAG queens make their commitments and positive affirmations to be inducted into Women Aligned for Growth. Beyond the launch, the NGO also uses the opportunity to recognize the passion and impact of some outstanding individuals.
WAG is a character-building organization, NGO, to create impact in the society, particularly for women and youth, and to create leadership and change within our nation.
WAG, Women Aligned for Growth, aspires to work hand-in-hand with men, women and youth, fostering collaboration to elevate the quality of our citizenship.
Well, Anu Aodo is here with business news.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Kayode. Hello and welcome to Business News. Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, says it has signed a memorandum of understanding with a Chinese firm for the development of a floating liquefied natural gas project right here in Nigeria. This deal was signed by the NNPCL's Executive Vice President, Gas, Power and Energy, Mr. Olalekan Ogunleye, and the Managing Director of Wilson Heavy Saigu at the ongoing United Nations Climate Change Conference in Dubai, the capital of the United Arab Emirates. Both parties say this agreement, which covers a floating liquefied natural gas and small-scale LNG deal, is for both domestic and international markets. NNPCL also says the LNG project will be located in Ajaokuta in Kogi State and is expected to be operational by December next year. The World Bank says it has concluded plans to allocate $5 billion for access to electricity for 100 million people in Africa by the year 2030. Well, this was made known today by the president of the World Bank, Ajibanga, while delivering his speech at the midterm review of the International Development Association's $93 billion replenishment package in Zanzibar, Tanzania. Mr. Banga called on the World Bank shareholders, donor countries and philanthropists to dig deeper to help the IDA deliver better development outcome to low-income countries. The current 20th IDA funding round is due to be completed on June the 30th, 2025, with the Zanzibar conference aimed at adding to that funding. We head to the domestic market now. It recorded another gain at the close of midweek trading session today, so the color is green. Willie Bong has the details.
Thanks, Anne, and rightly said. 2 consecutive positive closes for the equities market, and today is one day in the market I sure love to report on. There was a stampede on the NGX today for the banking stocks. The figures were all on a trailblazing streak. Access Holdings hit 21 Naira today, and FBN Holdings made it above 29 Naira. A lot of investors are definitely cashing out from the First Bank power tussle. Now, the massive jump in the figures is reflected in the banking sector, which blew past 5% today, and that heralds the 0.78% rise in the all-share index, with a whopping 305 billion Naira increase in value for the market cap. Fantastic run with 31 gainers and 21 stocks losing, and we have a home run. Willie Bang, signing out.
Thank you, Will. Now let's bring you snapshots of closing performance at all the major markets around the world. And that's Business News for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Kayode.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Well, thank you, Anne. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says nowhere is safe for civilians in Gaza as Israeli forces intensify ground operation, including house-to-house fighting. Here's Simon Puse with other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Boris Johnson fought back tears as he told the COVID inquiry he should have twigged the seriousness of coronavirus sooner than he did. The former Prime Minister arrived 3 hours early for the first of 2 days of evidence. The inquiry was set up to examine the UK's preparedness and response to the pandemic and to learn lessons for the future. The UK had a higher level of excess deaths than any other Western European country, bar Italy, between the period of 2020 to 2023.
In that period,
Mr Johnson said he should have cancelled mass gatherings, including the Cheltenham Festival. He apologised for the pain and the loss and the suffering, but defended not chairing 5 COPRA meetings on COVID in early 2020.
COVID was pretty much like a cloud on the horizon, no bigger than a man's hand, and you didn't know whether it was going to turn into a typhoon or not. And I certainly didn't. I was unsure, and it became clear much later.
The government failed to wake up, did it not? It failed to understand the significance of the crisis, and therefore it must follow. Failed to take steps speedily enough.
I think that it would certainly be fair to say of me, the entire Whitehall establishment, scientific community included, our advisors included, that we underestimated the scale and the pace of the challenge.
Meanwhile, various groups of bereaved families and campaigners protested outside the building. Many had travelled hundreds of miles and most didn't have tickets to go inside. Instead, they stood clutching photos of their lost loved ones, united in their anger towards Boris Johnson.
I just want answers. I want to know why this has happened, why he didn't learn from the mistakes of the first wave, why he didn't lock down sooner, and why my mum died when she didn't need to.
I'm going to be without my parents this Christmas, and if we don't learn lessons, there's going to be other families in the future who will suffer from government ineptitude.
He'll be remembered as a Prime Minister who presided over one of the greatest peacetime tragedies of all times in the world. And I mean, he's a disgraced Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister, so I think his legacy speaks for itself.
Heavy fighting is taking place across Gaza, with house-to-house fighting reported as Israeli forces intensify their ground operation. Tanks are closing in on 3 areas, Khan Yunis in the south and Jabalia and Shujaiya in the north, where hundreds of thousands of civilians remain. The United Nations says 600,000 people are under evacuation orders in southern Gaza, but there is nowhere to go because shelters are so full. Russian President Vladimir Putin is making a rare trip abroad to the United Arab Emirates and is also scheduled to travel to Saudi Arabia. Fighter jets escorted Mr. Putin to the airport before the host nation staged a lavish welcome ceremony, including a display leaving contrails in colours of the Russian flag. Mr. Putin is expected to discuss the wars in Gaza and Ukraine, as well as oil production with the UAE president. He has barely left Russia since March, when the International Criminal Court issued him an arrest warrant. Rescuers have found the body of the last missing hiker from a volcanic eruption on Indonesia's Mount Merapi on Sunday, bringing the death toll to 23. The search for 10 missing hikers resumed after being paused due to safety worries. The final body was recovered on Wednesday. The volcano spewed a 3-kilometre ash cloud into the air on Sunday, shrouding surrounding villages in ash. And Peruvian archaeologists have unearthed 3 Inca burial bundles belonging to 2 adults and possibly a child north of the capital, Lima. The bundles, which were buried in an Incan administrative centre called Tambo Inga, are the first discovery of their kind since scientific excavations started 3 months ago at the site. The discovery will now be put under the scientific spotlight to hopefully shed new light on how the Inca lived in Peru 500 years ago. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. 2018 champion Caroline Wozniacka has been awarded a wild card to the Australian Open as she returns to Melbourne for the first time in 4 years. The 33-year-old retired after the 2020 Australian Open to start a family, but returned to the tour at Montreal in August. The mother of 2 played her first Grand Slam in 3 years at the US Open and reached the last 16. The Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Eno, convened a meeting with the Nigeria Football Federation and Super Eagles coach Jose Peseiro earlier today to deliberate on strategic plans for the African Cup of Nations. The meeting held at the Minister's office in Abuja focused on fostering synergy and solidifying a comprehensive roadmap to ensure Eagles' success at the tournament. NFF President Ibrahim Gusau assured Nigerians that there is no need to panic as all hands are on deck to ensure the country flies high in Côte d'Ivoire. And of course, in the EPL, teenager Jack Henshawood's first senior goal helped Brighton come from behind to claim 2-1 victory over Brentford. Bournemouth continued their impressive run of form as they beat Crystal Palace 2-0 at the Selhurst Park to claim their 3rd win in 4 games. Fulham hammered Nottingham Forest 5-0 at Craven Cottage, while Liverpool defeated Sheffield United courtesy of goals from Virgil van Dijk and Dominic Szoboszlai. And the match is currently ongoing. Manchester United currently lead in the game against Chelsea at Old Trafford, while Aston Villa have gone ahead in the game against defending champions Manchester City. And Carlos Queiroz has parted company with Qatar's national team less than a year after signing a 4-year contract. The former Real Madrid and Portugal head coach took over as a replacement for Felix Sanchez in February and was charged with qualifying the Gulf state for the 2026 World Cup. Queiroz oversaw wins over Afghanistan and India in November in the second round of the Asia's preliminaries for the next World Cup, with the Qataris chasing 1 of 8 berths available for teams from the continent at the expanded 48-team finals. And Formula One governing body has announced a compliance probe that drew a furious response from the sports owners, top team Mercedes, and one of the most senior women in motorsports. The storm broke after the FIA issued a surprise statement saying it was looking into a report a team boss had received confidential information from an employee of the commercial rights holder. Although the principal was not named, media identified him as Mercedes' Toto Wolff, whose wife, Susie, leads the all-female F1 Academy. And that's it in sport. It's back to you, Kayode.
Well, thank you, Chris. And the main news again. The Senate Committee on Appropriation today warned the group CEO of NNPCL, Mele Kyari, not to undermine the legislature, just as lawmakers gave him 24 hours to appear before them. Meanwhile, the House Committee on Electoral Matters has expressed its displeasure over absence of INEC chairman at the budget defense session. And the number of those injured in Sunday's mistaken airstrike in Kaduna State has risen to 87. In the meantime, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Army has called for calm and said the incident does not warrant resignation of the Chief of Army Staff as being demanded in some quarters. Well, that's the news at 10 for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikulu. Good night.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Kaleidoscope on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawadu. On the program today, we're set with the CEO of Sterling One Foundation, Kwejri Bekwe, to discuss the organization's various initiatives. Once again, welcome to Kaleidoscope. Sterling One Foundation was established by one of the leading financial institutions in Nigeria, Sterling Bank, to tackle poverty in the country. Let's find out more. Sterling One Foundation is a registered non-governmental organization established in 2018 by Sterling Bank to serve as a vehicle for positive social impact across 5 critical sectors of the economy. Driven by the unique challenges facing Africa and the need for progressive change, the foundation committed to be the benchmark of positive social impact in Nigeria by creating sustainable solutions for empowerment and job creation. Although established